In this video, I will be showing examples of the problems that we have done in section 1.9, and they are about finding the inverse of functions. So when we find the inverse of f, we write that as f with a little negative 1 on top. The same thing for y. If we find the inverse of y, we write y with a little negative 1 on top. Now, there's a couple of steps that we're going to do to find the inverse algebraically. Step number 1 will be to solve for x, that is, get x by itself. Step 2, we're going to change that x that we get to f inverse, and then in the expression we are to switch the f of x with x. So here are some examples. So the first example is the linear equation f of x is equal to 2x minus 1. So the first step will be to solve for x. So we add 1 to both sides, and then we divide by 2. And once I'm done with that, then I go on to step number 2. That is to change that x into f inverse. And the f of x that's on the right side, we replace it with x. So there's the final answer. F inverse is equal to x plus 1 all over 2. The second example is y is equal to 3 minus x all over 2. So once again here, the first step will be to get x by itself. So I have a fraction there with a denominator of 2. I will multiply both sides by 2. I get 2y is equal to 3 minus x. Subtract 3 to both sides. And then to change the negative x into regular x, I multiply by negative 1 both sides. And I get that x is equal to negative 2y plus 3. So I have done the first step at that point. So the second step, once again, is to change the x to f inverse. And so, well, in this case, we don't notice how we never had an f of x. It was y. So the inverse of y is y inverse. So we have y with a little negative 1 on top. So the inverse is equal to negative 2x plus 3 because we changed the y into x. Okay, example number 3. Y is equal to quantity x minus 1 squared. So once again, the first step will be to solve for x. So we take the square root of both sides, and the radical cancels on the the square cancels with the radical. So we end up with x minus 1 on the right side, and then I add 1 to both sides, and I get x by itself. X equals radical y plus 1. That is step number 1. So step number 2, once again, is to change the x to the inverse. So y inverse is equal to, and let's change the y to x, and we get y inverse is equal to radical x plus 1, and that is the inverse. In the last example, we have f of x is equal to radical x minus 1, and then plus 5. So once again, step number 1 will be to get x by itself. So I will have to subtract 5 from both sides. Then I get rid of the square root by squaring both sides, and in this case I FOIL on the left side. So after you FOIL, you get this expression, quantity f of x squared minus 10 f of x plus 25. On the right side, the square root cancels with the squaring, and I get x minus 1. So I add 1 to both sides. Once again, what I want to do is get x by itself. So I add 1 to both sides, and let me get the x on the left side. And as the final step, or step number 2, it will be to replace x with f inverse. And everywhere where I see f of x on the right side, I replace it with x. And that is the inverse of the function f of x is equal to radical x minus 1 plus 5, the original function. And that is it.